Good morning, GMGN everyone. Welcome to today's AMA with us. It's really exciting to see everyone. I see more people joining the server, which is great. I am just gonna give a few more seconds to see whether we can let it fill up a little more. Okay, we're getting more people. We're almost ready to start, guys. Okay, so just to give you guys a little bit of context, we have some really special guests again tonight. Of course, Johnson, the founder of Amber Studio, and Chandler, who is the founder slash CEO of WarSpark Studios. WarSpark Studios is building a delightful game with the vision of making the world a little brighter place, filled with more happiness and optimism. The team is super talented, with people who have built great game titles like Destiny 2, Halo, League of Legends, Legends of Runeterra, Valorant, among many others. Now they are building Sparkadia, a central hub world from which players can jump into a number of different various gameplays. So just kind of going over a little bit about what we're going to be talking about. We will be hearing what it's like to build on Web3, especially as a game founders from experienced gaming background. And we're going to be specifically talking about opportunities and challenges of building games in Web3. So how about we get a small hellos from our speakers tonight? Um, Maybe Johnson and Chandler. Please give our audience a hi and some short introduction to you guys, please.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to start. So my name is Johnson. I am the CEO and founder for Ambrose Studio. Formerly, I was the Asia CEO for Riot Games, and that was actually a journey worthwhile discussing. I started as the head of esports for China for Riot in 2015, and then was able to take League of Legends esport all the way to become China's largest sport. We broadcast 5 billion hours every year. And then one large game of ours will get to over 100 million users. So, because I was really able to build a very successful community in China, I got promoted all the way to become the Asia CEO, where I overlooked all the co-development games with Tencent, and I was on the League of Legends product executive committee. Before Riot, I was in the management consulting for McKinsey, and then I was also part of the World Economic Forum in Geneva as a climate change activist slash international lobbyist. So it's a very, very unique career. And then, marked by the fact that over the last 3 years, I've been an entrepreneur. First 2 years working on the environmental project, and then over the last year working on Ambrose. And it's truly my pleasure to be here today to talk to everyone.
Great. Super exciting to have you. Your diverse background, including gaming and climate change. We're excited to hear more about the opportunities and challenges connected to these topics in Web3. And Chandler, your turn.
That's a tough intro to follow right there, Johnson. That's no, Johnson's background. It's so cool, and it's always great hearing about that. Honestly, a little similar, just at a much smaller scale. My background actually started in IT consulting for what was essentially the Microsoft arm of Accenture. So consultants run the world, so I love hearing that. But my background doesn't come from gaming at all. I had just always really wanted to make video games since I was a little kid. And I went to school for it, took my first programming class and said, yeah, never mind. I think I'm out. I'm no longer interested in making games because I don't want to be a programmer. And so went into the consulting world, and the love of wanting to make games never died. So eventually started my own project just for fun, started as a hobby, working weekends, funding it out of my own bank account, and it turned into something beautiful. Just over the course of a really long time, was able to make just a really fun game, and got enough people excited about it to raise some money, and now build out just an absolutely incredible team and be able to be in conversations like this. So it's super cool to be here, and great to meet everybody.
Super cool. Thank you so much for a great introduction, and congratulations on building
Oh,
the
thank you.
team and then raising your fund. And just I'm also coming from the consulting background. I was a management consultant at Bain, and like you guys are probably the coolest consultants I've ever met in reality.
Yeah,
Really.
we're a hit or miss crowd for sure.
All right, that's cool. So let's get started. I want to talk about something broader to give everyone a like fresh start. So we want to hear more about why did you guys step into the gaming industry in this time of the day, and especially Web3 gaming industry. I guess this one I'm gonna go with Johnson first.
Sure. Well, that's then two parts of the story. First is how I got into gaming in the first place, and then how I got into gaming this time. Um, I've always been a huge gamer all my life. I was number two in StarCraft in Taiwan. I reached number one on MSN Gaming Zone ladder for Age of Empires 1. I was on the Taiwan team for Magic the Gathering and then competed in the Global Championship in 1997. My parents were even willing to let me miss the first week of school for that. So that was quite unique for me to have that experience. I've always been a huge gamer myself, but I never really thought about a career in gaming. So I just always been playing games. Even when I was in McKinsey working, crazy hours, I still play about like 5 hours a week. And then just, it is just a way for me to de-stress and then just become a way of life for me. But that situation changed when I was thinking about leaving McKinsey and then doing something that can really be more operational and can have real impact. Um, a headhunter found me, and then that headhunter represents Riot. Riot interviewed with me for many, many times. The whole process was so slow. Literally, between the time they first started talking to me until my super day interview, where they flew me into Los Angeles for 2 days, was like 4 months. And then they went through a restructuring, and then it wasn't until 3 months later that they gave me an offer. So I actually turned down Riot when I first got the offer. I'm like, hey, sorry, I wanted to work for you, but I actually just joined World Economic Forum in Geneva, so I'm not going to be able to join Riot. And then my boss, Niccolo, who's now the CEO for Riot, he's like, oh, holy shit, sorry. Well, let's keep talking. I really want you. I think you're the right person. I'm like, sorry. But he kept pursuing me for like 10 months, literally from February all the way to November. And then I was shocked, but I was also impressed by his persistence. I'm like, if someone really think I'm such a good fit that even after I turn him down, he's willing to, keep in contact with me, tell me about his business, tell me, what if I join him, what will be all the things that I can do with him. I'm like, maybe I'll be fully empowered by this guy. So, almost a year after I joined the World Economic Forum, I decided to take Riot's offer to become the head of esports for China, and that's where this journey started. So, a very zigzag journey for sure. I actually did not expect to go into gaming. And then this time it's much, much faster. I was learning about Web3 in the second half of last year. I realized that this is really, really going to change the world. I believe that Web3 is going to be a new norm going forward, and it's going to hugely impact the gaming industry, and it has the potential to really have a breakthrough, especially in terms of the way we monetize for gaming. So I decided to set up Embrace and then build a game according to my own vision, according to my own strength, and put together a team that I think can kick ass with me together. So that's my story.
Awesome, and we're very excited to hear more about your vision later. But just a quick question: what if you ended up not joining Riot Games, like, what do you think was going to happen? Do you think you're still going to go back to game industry, or like, what do you think?
Honestly, probably not. That was like a once in a lifetime experience, right? I've never interviewed for a gaming company before. And I probably would have never thought of interviewing for a gaming company afterwards, too. Uh, Riot picked me because I left my gaming accolades at the bottom of my resume. At that time, when I was looking for to leave McKinsey, most of the jobs I was looking for are like on the United Nations side. International organization, think tanks on the climate change issue. So, if I was World Economic Forum was a bit slow for me, so I was looking for a change. But probably would never have entered the gaming industry if it were not because of
Oh
the
my God, that's
serendipity.
amazing. I have to thank the manager that wanted to hire you with his persistence. That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing. And what about you, Chandler?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that Johnson's kind of talking about, I'm sure he kind of had the same thought process. Is I've always wanted to be in gaming, but what happens is you go out and be a consultant, and they pay you a lot of money, and then you look at the gaming industry, and you're like, shoot, I would have to start over. I would have to start on the kind of the bottom of the rung, and so it's kind of like, hey, look, it's like I was playing a lot of League of Legends at the time, and it was like, hey, I would love to apply for Riot. That sounds so cool, but it's taking such a huge step back in the career. So yeah, I mean, congrats to Johnson. Obviously, that's a really really cool origin story, and I love it. But I think for me, it was kind of like, hey, look, I'm 10 years into my consulting career, or 6 or 7 at the time, whatever it was. It's too late to just switch careers. And so this was something I was going to have to do myself. And my start isn't quite as like competitive as Johnson's, but I used to be really, really into World of Warcraft. And so at like 15, 16 years old, I saw that, these forums were starting to spin up. It was called Marquee Dragon at the time. And I saw that people were selling their accounts. Accounts were going for, 3, 4, $500, but people were getting scammed left and right on those sites because, Blizzard obviously didn't support account trading, and people are, generally kind of jerks on the internet. I think, we get scams all the time, especially in Web3, which it sucks. And so it kind of came to me of like, hey, what if I acted as like a middleman? And what if I became like kind of this, buyer and seller of accounts? And so I became one of the first people to kind of form a business around buying and selling World of Warcraft accounts. And I did really, really well. I was having, thousands of dollars going in and out a month. I was making a ton of profit, and I was, 15 years old. And I always tell people like this was Web3 before Web3 was a thing. Um, World of Warcraft accounts and being able to sell those was essentially selling NFTs. Like when you really think about it, it was asset ownership for the time that I spent in the game. So I think this honestly is I give so much credit to World of Warcraft because it taught me, this idea of how economics work and, the ability to interact and run a business and talk to people and socialize and learn how to do sales and convince people to buy your accounts and convince people you were legit. And so honestly, like World of Warcraft is such a huge part of why I've been able to be successful. So that was really my start. And just like I said, always knew I was going to make games. But that said, as we got kind of this really great vertical slice and people were playing the game and we were getting great feedback from the community, we had kind of the opposite problem a lot of people have is we had no team. It was literally just me and a bunch of random people from the internet, but we had a really cool game. And so I was going around to venture capital and I was saying, hey guys, like come try out the game. And, people would come in and try the game and they'd be like, how did you do this for 200? Like we spent about $200,000 on the initial prototype. They're like, how did you do this? Like, this is incredible. This is one of the most fun games I've ever played. And it's only $200,000. Like, this is crazy. However, you're not investable. You don't have a team. You don't have, you don't have any experience building a video game studio. And, this was probably middle of last year. We talked to a lot of people and they're like, hey, Chandler, have you thought about going Web3? And admittedly, like I was not quite as bullish as Johnson. I looked at it and I was like every other gamer. I said, "Oh, NFTs, like tokens, that sounds terrible." Because Web2 gamers have this thought in their mind of what NFTs are, and we hate them. We just don't like the idea. But it wasn't until someone kind of sat me down and said, "Chandler, you know how you told me about how you traded World of Warcraft accounts? This is literally the same thing." and you can create this really neat economy, this free-to-play economy, and it just happens to have NFTs, and that's what does asset ownership. And all of a sudden it started clicking, and that's really where Sparkadia came up. And as we kind of made this maneuver to Web3 and built out this economic model of like, hey, I think it's really cool if we built in Web3, we went out and pitched that, and it was just a couple weeks. And then we raised the money, no problem. So, a lot of people in Web3, were kind of like desperate for games, and here we were with a game that already existed that was really fun, and they trusted us enough to, be able to build out that team at scale. And I think we've done exactly that. So, admittedly, Web3 for us was a means to an end, but it's become this thing that I've just really fallen in love with because of what it allows you to do on the economy side. So I'm really excited for that.
Super exciting, and also very interesting stories. Like both of you guys had at the beginning some slightly different viewpoint on the opportunity side of the Web3 and gaming, sounds like. But eventually you guys both landed into building games on Web3. So I want to get to the point after this. We want to learn more about how you guys think about the opportunities that you see in the space of Web3 and gaming, right? What kinds of values do you think we can create here in terms of combining gaming and building on Web3?
Yeah, I could jump into that one because I think this is a super common question. And I think right now, the answer to that question, I guess the most obvious answer to that question is this whole idea of play to earn. This whole idea of hey, I can make money playing video games, and I can, see a return on my time invested. But I think what that results in a lot, and I know both of us, both of our studios are really trying to solve this problem, is I think what that turns into is just kind of this big value extraction party. It's I am playing this game as a means to make money, and that changes how I play the game. I am having less fun because I have to play a certain way to earn. And so when I think about value in Web3, I don't think about extracting value. I think about intrinsic value. And the way that I always tell this is, a lot of people have probably spent $1,000 on League of Legends skins, or frankly more, and you're never, ever going to see any of that back. It is now stuck. You will never get it back, and it's gone. And I think what's so interesting about Web3 is hey, look, I no longer play this champion. I hate this champion now. I can get rid of this. I can sell it. And so to me, it's not about the money that I can earn playing the game. It's about this idea that at the end of the day, when I'm done with something, or when I've, sufficiently felt happy and I've gotten my fun out of this, I can get something back. And I think that was what was so interesting always to World of Warcraft for me, is I would sit on $1,000 accounts all the time because I loved them, because I wanted to play that character. And what kept me going was knowing that at the end of the day, I could get at least some of my time back on that character. So I really just see this kind of as the evolution of free to play. I don't think it's this gigantic shift in models. I think it's just it's one step up from free to play is kind of how I do it.
Thanks, Johnson. Thanks, Chandler. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
And Johnson, what about you? What's your thought on the opportunity side?
Very good question. I actually think there's a lot of different opportunities coming from this. To me, the fact that blockchains make data open source, verifiable, cannot be changed, that's a huge breakthrough, because that's a way for a small startup to earn trust. No, I mean, let's just put it this way, right? If I put out a clothing brand, it's LV. LV says, I'm doing this 1 out of 1 unique series. No one will doubt LV. But if I am a no-namer brand, everyone will be like, really? Is this really 1 of 1? What if your factory is manufacturing another one of this, blah, blah, blah. So to me, Web3 actually is a way for entrepreneurs to get trust on the rarity and then the uniqueness of your NFT products. And then the other thing that Web3 has is the ability for you to write metadata into your NFTs. And then that makes me think of a very, very unique combination, which is what if we combine gaming, esports, and Web3 into one. To me, what can sell the most valuable stuff is emotional attachment by selling fashionable lifestyle. When I was in Riot, my last 5-year vision for Riot China was I want to make League of Legends China's most fashionable lifestyle. That means we don't want it to be just a game. We want to be in esport, we want to be in entertainment, we want to be cool, we want to represent a way of life. And then I feel like I'm just keep pursuing that passion right now. I want to make sure that we're not just a gaming brand. We are all around you, and then we represent let's say a way of life. So what I want to make with Web3 right now is again a lifestyle that's denominated by a game that's fun to play, a game that is esport where you can speculate and have a lot of fun, share the fun with your friends. A game where our community represents the value of climate change, the value that can really help impact the world and make the world a better place. And then we use NFTs to show for that our emotional attachment to the same esport event, just like NBA Top Shot. We think that we will be able to use NFTs to break through the traditional ARPA ceiling for games. And then we think that's a huge breakthrough. But also, NFTs and the fashionable lifestyle that it represents is a way for us to venture into making this truly a way of life for our community, that you're standing for something. So to me, that's what Web3 really means. It's so bottom up, community driven. And then I want to harness this power to co-create the coolest lifestyle together with my community.
So I want to follow up on something Johnson said right there, because I think it's so powerful. What he just said, this whole idea of community and being able to build there. And I do think Web3, this idea of bottom up, and Web3 is just inherently community driven. And I do think it gives people like us, these idea of startups, the ability to compete with people because of that community vision. But I think the most important thing that Johnson said was this idea of emotional attachment. And it's this idea that a skin that I buy in League of Legends, for example, is significantly different than a skin I buy in, E4C or Sparkadia, because I now actually own that skin and it's now worth money, and inherently I can resell it. And this idea that I'm keeping it, even though I can resell it, inherently means that I have more emotional attachment to it. And I think beyond that, Johnson mentioned esports. Obviously, Johnson has infinitely more experience on esports than me. But I think what's so awesome about Web3 is right now the League of Legends World Championships are going on. The finals is in like 2 days, and it's been absolutely incredible to watch. And I think right now, and there's a few more things that you can do, but one of the main things that you can do in League of Legends is, okay, I want to support this team in the finals. I can buy a little icon that sits in the client and no one really sees it, and who knows? And I think what Web3 allows us to do is say, hey, so-and-so team in the finals, we're going to mint some NFTs of your team, some skins of you guys, or some icons, or some merch, some hats, some t-shirts, whatever. And now we get to sell these to the communities, and we can, do creator royalties and everything. And it's like, hey, let's show your appreciation for these teams. And now we're able to monetize and incentivize these esport teams. So I think Web3 is just like a huge step forward for esports, because it really allows kind of that content creation angle in a whole new way, frankly, that I'm personally really excited about.
100% agree with both of you guys. I mean, speaking of the League of Legends World Championship, the final, I'm very excited personally because the finalists are DRX versus T1. Both of them are Korean teams, and I'm from Korea, so I'm just like super personally excited. It's gonna happen in San Francisco, but I think this is the kind of excitement and emotional attachment that you guys are talking about, and it matters the most when it's combined with ownership, giving back the ownership. Now I have the full ownership with something that I'm emotionally attached to, and that's going to give me back the residual value if I need to get out of it or need to make changes. and at the same time, that's going to become available, in a very viable format by everyone, not only by the owner, but like within everyone in the community. So I think that really is going to be a powerful lever to change the gamer experience and overall an experience to be part of this community. And that's what I think Johnson is talking about with new version of lifestyle with combined with gaming, right? So I want to kind of give you guys like sort of a time to share more about what you guys are actually doing at like each one of your projects to kind of envision, kind of realize the visions that you guys have, and then what you've done so far, and then anything that you can share about your grand plans going forward as well. Probably from Chandler.
Maybe I'm not. Can you repeat that a little? I'm not sure. I want to make sure I answer this directly.
What have you guys been doing to realize the vision that you have?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that
And
makes
what you
sense.
plan going forward with
I think for us, and I really appreciate you. This is kind of this was the first thing you said about us, and I loved it. Our whole vision as a studio is this idea of making the world brighter for people. And Johnson's whole climate change thing is absolutely amazing, and I love the vision. And our vision is similar in that we want to make a positive impact. But for us, it's just happiness and optimism. I think inherently the world is kind of in a weird place right now, frankly. And there's a lot of bad stuff going around. And so when we think about games, we want games to be an escape, and we want games to be this place where people just go and smile and laugh. And I think what's so funny about League of Legends, and I'm sure anybody here can attest to this, is League of Legends is a game that we will all actively say, I hate League of Legends. But we all keep playing it over and over and over again. And we all just become these toxic, salty people. But we love the game and we keep playing it. And that's not a knock against League of Legends at all. It's just inherently kind of how the game makes you feel. And so our real goal as we build out Sparkadia and as we build out Eden Brawl is to have this place where like people play the game and it's like, look, bad stuff happens, but you're just laughing and you're just smiling the whole time. And so the way that we want to accomplish our vision, beyond just like, hey, we have this, slightly different gameplay loop that maybe lends itself to faster game times and less toxic teammates and all that good stuff. But most importantly to us is kind of this IP and this world and this story and the characters that we're building. And so when we think about characters and the way that they fight, we always go back to Super Smash Brothers. So anybody that's ever played Super Smash Brothers, it's a super competitive game, but in general, you're kind of laughing the whole time that you're playing it. And when you get Falcon punched or Donkey Kong punched off a map, like you're angry for a second, but then you just kind of smile and you laugh. And so that's really what we wanted to bring to the space. It's really what we want people to do, is that as you're competing and getting really serious about this game, all of a sudden a toilet drops on your head. Or this pool playing robot zooms around and hits you with a pool ball, or you get hugged by this giant magma guy. And what we really find is that as people play our game, there's just this laughter and this happiness. And I think that's really, really what we want to bring to the space. I think that's the ultimate vision of Sparkadia and World Spark in general. It's kind of why we came up with the whole Spark piece, is we just want to spark this optimism in people. And I think it all starts with kind of the stories and the characters that we write in.
Thank you so much for sharing, Chandler. I do agree. I mean, toxic games are fun, but at the end of the day, people get toxic because they are emotionally attached. So understand, I've been there, like we've all been there and then done that. But we do need like happy games for sure. We do need like clean game and a happy game, and then we're super excited about your vision and plans. And the same question to you, Johnson. What has the team done to realize your vision of creating the new lifestyle with like games combined with Web3? And what are your plans?
First of all, I want to just echo what Chandler was saying. I actually in college, my life was crazy. Literally, I never go to my morning classes, so I ended up not picking any morning classes. I'll go to classes in the afternoon, do some homework, and then have dinner. And then after dinner is watching TV and then playing Smash Brothers like all night. And I think
that was my college too, Johnson. I love it, man.
Yeah, and then what's crazy is that after all my dorm mates go to bed, I'll go back to my computer and keep playing StarCraft. I was in Chicago, so I'll keep playing StarCraft with guys on the West Coast. So that was really fun. But yeah, anyway, I was just saying, and what makes games like that fun, it's the art style, and it's like, the fact that you're really playing with your friends, the community. So I feel like, what we're doing together, right? I mean, both Chandler and I, we're doing this because, this is something that will be fun together with people you care about, the community, your friends, and that's what makes you happy. And that's what games are supposed to be, right? It's not about churning and grinding and then trying to earn money. We think at the end of the day, right? Games are a play for fun. And I think, for both me and Chandler, that's what means the most. Anyway, so yeah, going back to the question, Amber Studio has a really unique vision. Our vision is good game for good cause. Every gaming company want to build a good game. We do too, but we really want to make it a lifestyle, something that can make a difference to people's lives. And I picked the topic of climate change really because I see it as the most important challenge that humankind is facing, but also a challenge that is very, very dear to my heart. So what we decided to do then is to build out this fun game, and then build out this community, and then ask the community to work together with us. In our universe, we're there to educate the world about the dire consequences of climate change. In our mission system, we're going to have a lot of online, offline mission where you can really help make the world a better place with your own actions. And then to me, right, what we're doing then is build a game with a mission. And one thing I really want to, want my community and everyone to feel is that gaming, is so misunderstood by so many people, by our parents, by the community. They think it's addictive. It's not. Gaming can be a force for good. Let's do something together. Gamers around the world, let's prove ourselves that we can be a positive force and do something great for the society, make impact. Let's join the community of games that has a very positive vision, and then let's together make a difference to the world, and then make our parents, make the community proud that gaming is not just about addiction. It is about gamers together with all the things we learn from gaming can make impact too. So that's what I'm doing.
Sorry, my mic was not working for some reason. Thank you so much for sharing, Johnson. I want to switch gears to a little bit more about opportunities, not even within game, but like more broadly speaking in Web3. What are the kinds of opportunities or major improvements do you guys see that will happen in Web3 in general? Maybe like if you have any brief ideas. I'll just open it to either one of you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in. I mean, I think for those who like just a quick history lesson, for those who are either younger or don't follow game development, or I guess game economic models super hard. About 15, 20 years ago, free to play games were a complete joke. You would talk to someone about doing microtransactions or a free to play game, and everybody would say, "You're crazy. You should sell your game for $50, and that should be the entire game, and that's it, done." And then live service or like DLC kind of got somewhat popular, and expansions got somewhat popular. But anybody that said, "Hey, I want to make a completely free to game and do microtransactions," was looked at like they were crazy. And eventually, over the course of time, a few good games came out. League of Legends being one of them, actually, and really kind of changed the perception of free to play games. And I think right now that's what's happening with Web3 gaming. And I think the opportunity is for a game like us or E4C to come in and say, "Hey, look, we want to be the next step of the free-to-play model. And what that next step is like, look, your time and your effort can be rewarded in some way. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean financial gain, but just rewarded in some way. So I think that's, it's really convincing players. And in order to convince players that way, there has to be a good game. You cannot sell people on ideas in the gaming world. You have to show them. And so I think it's going to take people like, us at E4C to really rewrite that mantra. And so I think the opportunity is obviously huge for us. The first game that makes that model work, truly work, convinces people is, first mover advantage. And there's so much of this gigantic market opportunity of like, once you tell people, hey, by the way, you can actually, get some of this money back, or, actually own your assets and do X, Y, Z. And it's really neat, and you should try it. That's an entire new audience. And now all of a sudden you're not competing with League of Legends. And I think Johnson can attest to this, that even though we're both, MOBA style projects, there is no way we want to compete directly with League of Legends. Competing with League or Dota is dangerous, and you don't win. And so I think it's the opportunity for people like us to really say like, hey, we're a little different here. And we can be part of that kind of wave of change. So it's that opportunity for us as startups and as, relative nobodies in the gaming landscape to make a difference. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and sorry, Chris, you might need to just talk for 2 minutes because I need to do my PCR test right now, mandatory.
Oh, okay, sure, of course. No, that's really cool. I mean, at the end of the day, like what both of you guys mentioned, Web3 is really about empowering like individuals and then decentralized teams. Like, so we're kind of bringing powers of like brand and then trust from like kind of big brands and then central middlemans, and then give it back to like smaller scale projects and startups and individual users like us. In that sense, I 100% agree with what Chandler just mentioned. This is going to be a great room for great opportunity for all of us to kind of make disruption and make changes. And it's going to happen in game, and then not even only in games, like in all the different kinds of like verticals within Web3. But that's I think what we're seeing.
I always give this speech too while we're waiting for Johnson. I hope it comes back negative, by the way, Johnson.
Oh,
I hope you're okay.
I am here.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. I think what I always talk about here is this idea of, I just mentioned this idea of relative nobodies being able to come in and actually compete. And I think what's so interesting about the Web3 community, and I always like to give this speech usually at the end of the AMA, but I'll give it now because it feels very relevant to the topic, is because Web3 is so community driven and everybody's out here listening to an AMA about games that aren't released yet. And that doesn't happen that much in Web2. Frankly, these companies aren't hosting AMAs about games that aren't released yet. But the community really comes together and supports these projects. And I always tell people that Eden Brawl was in development for 6 years before we ever raised any money. And that is an extreme amount of time. And there were multiple times throughout that journey that I wanted to quit. I was so tired of, just burning my own money over and over again. And it felt like it was never going to happen. And the community came in and just constantly reminded me, like, Chandler, you have something special here. We are fans. We will support you. Please keep going. And that made such a huge difference. And I think the ability to come in here and, one, be able to hold things like this and see the community support. So thank you, obviously, to everyone showing up, but also being able to sell like NFTs beforehand. This is a community that's, we can raise extra money through NFT sales, through supporting, and we can really build. We don't need traditional VC. Well, I would love some traditional VC money right now, but there's other alternatives, and we could look at tokens and NFTs and things like that. And that really, I call it the great equalizer. It allows us to compete with the other folks. And so I really just can't say enough to everyone here, like, your words matter, your feedback matters. Frankly, your wallets matter to us. And I think that's such a cool thing about Web3 is being able to get people involved at this stage and hearing that feedback. It's so important.
Amazing, 100%. And community is really the power, the root of the power that Web3, all the Web3 products have, right? And speaking of which, we've been talking a lot about great opportunities and power that Web3 might have, like potentially. But I'm sure building games in Web3, there are going to be challenges I'm pretty sure you guys are facing. Like, what do you think is the biggest challenge that Web3 gaming is facing, and how you guys are solving it? I want to spend probably the next 5 minutes to hear your thoughts on this matter.
Yeah, go for it, Johnson.
Sure. Actually, Chris, I actually want to rewind. So I'm not answering this question yet.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
You missed me for the last question. And sorry, guys, I am in China, and that it is, when we are called to do PCR during our quarantine, you just have to go. Otherwise, they're going to come and take you away. So, to me, no, I want to start by telling a story. When League of Legends first started, 2006. We we already had the vision for the game. We want to make this Dota like game, but make it free to everyone, keep updating it, making it a better game every single week. But we went to the investors, and investors are like, hey, you should do this in browser. Browser game are like, this top, like the top, let's say in terms of user flow right now. And even, yes, we know the user experience is going to be slightly less, but you're going to get like 10 times more the people. But our founders, Mark and Brandon, decided that, what matters the most is player experience. It's the community, the players that matters. So we don't think, whether browser is big or not is lesser of importance. What's important is that if our community can enjoy this game together, have fun, and then we'll figure out a monetization model, which is this free-to-play model or game as a service model that never really existed before. So to me, going back, right, I think the best opportunity right now in Web3 is to build a player-centric game, something that gives players the fun that they've always looked for in games. Like Chandler said, right, the laugh that you get out of Smash Brothers, playing with your friends, playing with people you care about, competing with them. That's what I want our community to do, have fun with each other. And then once we have fun with each other, yes, in Web3, no one has figured out the tokenomics. No one has figured out how to build a sustainable tokenomics or sustainable revenue model. It doesn't matter. It's like PC, game as a service back then. If we have players who care about the game, we will figure out a way to monetize. And for us, we already figured it out. It's, with skins, with emotional attachment, using NFT to break through the traditional ARPA ceiling. So I feel like where we are right now is even one step further than where League of Legends was. But I think that at the end of the day, what's really important is do what the player needs. And Web3 needs more fun games. And then that's why we're tackling here. Web3 needs more users. Web3 needs more adoption. Web3 needs people to understand all the benefits it's going to bring. And that's what we're doing right now. So now, going back to the challenge part. Oh my God, there's so many challenges. It's unimaginable. But to me, the biggest challenge is making a game where a lot of your team are don't really know about Web3, and then we're trying to, let's say, make a game that's going to be a hybrid of Web2 and Web3. Even our target audience is like initially Web3, but then increasingly more Web2. I just feel like we are in a state where people are like, what are we really making? Do we truly understand what Web3 is going to be? And a lot of people, even on my team, they don't know what the future is going to be like. But to me, that's the fun part, right? We need to educate people. We need to create that future together. And we have a very clear vision, and we're here to realize it. And then the rest is about execution. And there's so much pain executing as an entrepreneur, so much cash problems, people problem, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. If we have the right vision and the right team to carry out, then I believe that we have the highest chance of success. And then, of course, no one can guarantee success. But if the whole team is passionate about it, then I believe that this is the best formula for success, and there's nothing we cannot overcome.
Yeah, honestly, my answer is going to be really short because I think Johnson hit it right on the head. And honestly, he even said what I've been telling a lot of investors and people in the space that talk about go to market is our first users will be Web3 users. It will be people that are okay with NFTs and okay with tokens, but that is not a big enough crowd right now to sustain a game long term. That is not enough player base to make games like ours super successful. And I think he's spot on in this idea that, like, yes, this is going to be our first player base, but eventually we need to find a way to hit that Web 2 crowd. That is that mass adoption that everybody talks about. That is the big payoff in terms of player base and monetization and everything. So by far, I think the biggest challenge is perception and combating that perception. Like I said, a year ago, I was that person who heard the word NFTs and said, absolutely not. Those don't belong in my games. And I think it's being able to convince more and more people that it is good for the player. And that's on Johnson and I and our teams to have it actually be good for the player. Like, not only do we have to, be able to tell the story that it's good for them, it actually has to be. And so it's all about making this experience as seamless as possible and then showing them and really walking the walk that it is good for them. And it's combating that perception that I think is going to be the biggest challenge for us.
100%. Thank you so much, guys. 100% agree that the biggest challenge that we have in Web3 is really the mass adoption and the perception, right? And then we're going to need a lot of education to bring more people on top of that. So we covered most of our topics. I do want to bring one more question from our community. This one is from Abdul Alahi from our AMA question channel. And this one is for Chandler. Is Sparkadia another metaverse? And is this game a full skill-based game? Chandler?
Yeah, great question. So I can start with the second one. Yes, it's 100% skill-based. There is zero pay to win. You cannot go buy an NFT. You cannot use tokens to be better at the game. It's something really important to us. Our game mode and our game type is literally tailor-made for esports. So super skill-based, no pay to win. Absolutely. Great question. As for the metaverse question, that one's a little more complicated. Whenever I talk about our project, with investors or other groups, I always say Sparkadia is our quote unquote metaverse. And I'm very deliberate about this idea of like, hey, look, I'm going to use the word metaverse, but it's not a metaverse in the traditional sense. And I think what's most important about this is we always say the world is not our game. And what that means is in most metaverse plays, Decentraland and Sandbox always come to mind, is that the game itself is the metaverse. It's the social aspects, it's building, it's exploring. And so for us, Sparkadia is a virtual world and it is a social community, but for us, it's just a lobby. There's nothing to do in Sparkadia other than kind of talk and show off who you are and what you love and what characters you play in Sparkadia and how good you are at Eden Brawl and things like that. But it's not an actual game itself. We are not trying to build a social, build an explore space. We're trying to build a social space. And so our metaverse is really just a fancy lobby instead of a 2D UI menu. It's a virtual world. And so, you can call that a metaverse if you want. But, it really just depends on how you look at it. But we're really adamant that the games are the reason that you're going to want to come to that, not the metaverse itself.
Thank you so much for the clear answer, Chandler. I agree. And nowadays, I almost feel like there's almost like an anxiety of using the word metaverse because everybody's using it.
Agree.
Right. But at the end of the day, what's really important is I 100% agree. It's really the substance, which is gameplay and like the social space for you guys to hang out with like your colleague, players and friends, right? So super looking forward to your project, Sparkadia. And this is it actually for today's AMA. Thank you so much, both of you. I really love talking to great founders with great minds. I really enjoyed it all the time. So my name is Chris. I'm the head of business development at Amber Studio. I've been your host tonight. And please make sure you guys to follow us, Amber Studio, and Sparkadia. Sparkadia GG without any space on Twitter, and stay tuned for both projects in progress. Thank you so much for coming, and we will see you guys again the next time. Any final words from you guys?
I don't have much, honestly. Thank you for having me. Really cool community you guys have, and I'm such a huge fan. And I mentioned it in our Discord as well that even though we're kind of both building MOBAs, all ships rise with the tide. So I'm rooting for you guys, and I know you guys are rooting for us, and I'm really excited to see both of us be successful. And like I said, everybody just keep showing up and keep giving feedback to sessions like these, because it means the world to people like Johnson and myself. So be positive, be optimistic. And it was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for putting this together, Chris and Johnson.
Yeah. And I just want to say, Chandler, I love speaking with you. We should do this again.
Always.
No, we just have so many things in common, and then we have the same vision. Let's kick ass together. And thank you to everyone today who attended the AMA. We'll see you again very soon.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.